Hello, everyone, and welcome to Occupational Therapy 212, Occupation Through the Lifespan. My name is Melissa Kay, and I'll be your instructor. Today's lecture, our final of all of the ages and stages of development, is late adulthood. And this presentation was originally developed in 2020 by my students Tiffany Ng, Brian Kim, Marika Drovin, and Victoria Leung. So, a debt of gratitude to them, and I have since modified and revised this presentation for you. Let's go ahead and get started. We have three objectives today. We're going to look at theories involving late adulthood. We're going to look at developmental changes across domains in late adulthood. And finally, we'll discuss how disability and other issues may affect development and occupational engagement in our older adults. This is an overview. We'll look at theory, physical and sensory function, driving and community mobility, retirement and money management, work and volunteerism, and then finally, death and dying. First up is theorists, and at this point I want to note that each section is delineated by one of these slides that has less words on it, and it's a way of organizing the slide deck so that you can find what you're looking for quickly. Also, please refer to the presenter notes as you study and review this presentation, as there's a lot of great information in there, and I may not be going through every bit of it. So there's several theories that we'll be looking at in brief. Erikson, Havighurst and Albrecht, Cummings and Henry, and finally Maddox. So we've been looking at Erikson throughout the lifespan, and this stage of development is about ego integrity versus despair. So the stage is motivated by an older adult's opportunities to reflect on their life. If they have integrity, it reflects a successful life. If they have despair, it reflects a regretful life. And it leads to a state of wisdom, which is pretty cool. Havighurst and Albrecht have activity theory, and basically they advocate for avoiding a sedentary lifestyle, right? As we get older, our strength, our endurance, our cardiovascular fitness, all of that may decline, yet activities and keeping going may lead to positive self-concept and actually kind of form a positive feedback loop where older adults engage more and feel better. Cumming and Henry talk about disengagement theory, and in contrast with activity theory, it emphasizes that older adults should not be discouraged from following their inclination towards more solitude and greater inactivity. It is a time for reflection, and that can be a quiet, sort of inward-looking kind of period. And it's peaceful and without the distractions that accompany earlier stages of life. It is criticized as being ageist because it justifies treating older adults as second-class citizens and as folks who are not as engaged in occupation and activity and not as engaged in life. So we present this theory. It doesn't mean that we necessarily advocate all of it. And finally, Maddox has continuity theory, which basically says that, as people age, they continue to see themselves in the same way as they did when they were younger. They approach problems and goals and situations much in the same way, but in older bodies. So one maintains their identity, and there's a focus on what a person can do, and pursuing interests and activities is one way to optimize and maintain self-identity. Next up is body functions and structures. And for those of you that are interested in working with older adults, you know that the decline is a large reason why OT is actually so involved with this age group. So let's first look at attention. Functional attention requires good working memory and inhibitory control. Older adults use more of the prefrontal cortex than younger adults in memory tasks because it becomes more difficult. And it suggests that older adults are engaging in additional executive functional resources to support short-term memory maintenance. So they're working harder. Also involved is processing speed. So neural processing speed deficits occur with age and are associated with diminished white matter volume and white matter integrity. From 60 to 70 years of age, there's a decline of abilities to manipulate or process and retain memory. And it is involved in episodic and working memory, as well as inhibition and intention. In terms of inhibitory control, there's a decreased ability to re-engage after someone becomes lost in thought. So older adults are more vulnerable than younger adults to interference from distractors when they're trying to attend to a task that requires their attention. Older adults have a decreased ability to re-engage after this kind of distraction happens, and there's a greater post-error slowing. So they slow their response speed much more than young adults might. Memory function also changes with age, and there's challenges with decoding and encoding. So both with getting the information into memory and then getting it back out of memory. There is a kind of behavioral thing that comes up. Wow, I'm talking about memory and I can't find my words. How weird. Anyway, there's something called benign senescent forgetfulness, and healthy individuals who experience brief episodes of cognitive decline are having this benign senescent forgetfulness. It's more attributed to inattentiveness and distractions than the actual aging process, and it's not really severe enough to interfere with activities. So this is something that happens, but it's not a huge problem. There's also age-associated memory impairments, which is memory impairment that occurs with everyday activities. It's typically a modest loss of memory function, and it happens again in healthy people who are 50 and older. Now let's turn to sensory functions, and we're going to first look at vision and then hearing. So visual impairments continue to happen in older adults. Presbyopia, which is very common in older adults, is a normal aspect of aging, and it is the inability to have the eyes accommodate. So basically farsightedness. We say, if only my arms were longer, I could see everything. Dynamic visual acuity and the useful field of vision also decline. In terms of hearing, there's a gradual hearing loss due to loud noise, aging, and disease processes, and possibly heredity. And hearing aids become a thing that is commonly prescribed for older adults. And in the slide, you can see a variety of very small in-ear hearing aids. And hearing aids have come a very long way since they were first invented. So they're very unobtrusive. They cannot bring hearing back, but they can do a lot to manage hearing loss for older adults. There is also issues with the vestibular system, and balance is one of the leading health concerns for people over 60, in particular a fear of falling, or FOF. Presbyostasis is an impairment of vestibular function that is due in particular to aging. Between 65 and 75, we notice this, and we also notice that older adults may walk with a wider base of support, they may stagger, and they may experience unsteadiness. They can also develop this fear of falling, which causes them to avoid activities, which, as you can imagine, contributes to poorer health status and also functional decline. How we can mitigate this is through education, environmental safety considerations, discussing risk-taking behaviors and how to manage that, and also assertiveness training and improving fitness. So we're going to kind of counteract some of the vestibular issues with some strength training, balance training, etc. Somesthesia also declines as we age, and this is the senses of touch, vibration, temperature, kinesthesia, proprioception, and pain. So kind of a combo of tactile and proprioceptive. With aging, fine touch declines and pressure and vibration sensation decline. And because of this loss, individuals are more reliant on vision, which we know is also declining, but can be corrected. And dexterity may decline as well. Then we have the sensory functions of taste and smell, and these two become less acute with age. So saliva flow decreases, and there's hyposmia and hypogeusia. The first being a decreased sensitivity to smell, and the second being a decreased sensitivity to taste. So foods are losing some of their robustness and pungence, and this means that appetite decreases, right? It's not as much fun to eat when you can't see, taste or smell the food really very acutely. So the other thing that happens, and we want to watch out for this, is that because you can't smell or taste, you may not realize that food may be spoiled or may not smell gas during cooking if there's a leak or things like that. So it also becomes somewhat of a safety issue. There's also, as you can imagine, a number of musculoskeletal changes. Osteoarthritis and osteoporosis both continue. So osteoarthritis being age-related arthritis, and osteoporosis being the fractures and increasing brittleness of the bones due to a lack of calcium, and it can lead to chronic pain, disability, and even death. There's a decline in potential functional impact as well. And going back to sarcopenia. So this is the degeneration of and the decrease of muscle mass. And we talked about this with our middle adults. It continues in older adulthood. And then finally, decline in potential functional impact. Decline in strength, changes in postural alignment, impairments in balance and gait and maximal speed of movement, all really combine to create a situation that makes it very difficult for older adults. And it can be kind of offset by strength training and endurance training and maintaining aerobic capacity.